Welcome back to another superhero versus video. Today, we have two of the strongest villains from the Marvel Cinematic Universe going head to head. We have Hela, the Asgardian Goddess of Death, and in this fight, she is taking on Gorr the God Butcher. These godlike beings are incredibly powerful and were able to give Thor some trouble. However, we know that one of them has to be stronger than the other. So, if ever Gorr and Hela were to fight, especially if Gorr were to attempt to destroy Asgard during Hela's reign, who would win and why? Before I even scale any of their feats, which I will do in a few moments, I should tell you that Hela is most likely going to win in a battle against Gorr the God Butcher. That's because Hela has been able to showcase feats that allowed us to see just how huge the gap is between her and Thor. Meanwhile, there wasn't any gap between Gorr and Thor, as even Jane was able to give him a difficult time. Yes, we know for a fact that Gorr was powerful enough to slay a lot of gods in his time. But as Zeus himself said, those were minor gods, and they probably weren't as strong as Thor. Even if we were to look at the comic book version of Gorr, Hela is still stronger than him. That said, let's look at this discussion in greater detail. Starting off with strength. Gorr's strength comes from the fact that he was able to become the new owner of the Necrosword, which is basically a sword that's capable of slaying gods. He is basically just as strong as any regular human, but was able to obtain godly might thanks to the Necrosword, which allowed him to fight Thor and the mighty Thor on par. And we can assume that he was also strong enough to kill a lot of other gods throughout the galaxy using his strength. Even when compared to the other gods, Hela's strength is seemingly immeasurable. We already know that their strength is incredibly ridiculous even by Asgardian standards. However, Hela was always stronger than Thor, and that was seen in the fact that she was able to overpower him in battle. That means that Hela's strength could be at the very top when compared to all of the other gods of the universe. Gorr struggled in a fight against Thor, and we can only assume that Hela won't have a problem against him, especially when she is close to Asgard, which allows her to become even stronger than she already is. Now let's talk about their powers. Gorr's powers come from the Necrosword, which gives him shadow-like powers. In the comics, however, the only powers he has from the sword are enhanced physical capabilities, but he was still able to acquire the powers of the gods that he killed. Nevertheless, we know for a fact that the MCU version of Gorr was able to summon shadow creatures using the Necrosword, and that essentially allowed him to create his own army. Hela's powers are incredible even by Asgardian standards. As the goddess of death, she could easily do anything that could kill incredibly powerful opponents and skilled fighters as well. Hela is capable of summoning weapons and all other types of constructs out of thin air, and she only becomes even stronger when she is close to Asgard. Even though Gorr's powers allowed him to wipe out entire pantheons of gods, the fact of the matter is that he is nothing without the Necrosword. On the other hand, Hela is strong regardless of whether or not she is close to Asgard, as she has always been strong enough to beat Thor. How about each character's durability? In both the MCU and the comics, Gorr was shown to be quite durable, as he was able to withstand attacks from Thor. There was a point in the comics where he nearly got killed by Thor but was able to survive. Meanwhile, in the MCU, the Necrosword allowed Gorr to become as durable as any god out there. And the fact that Thor and Jane needed to destroy the Necrosword meant that Gorr probably would not have died had they not destroyed his weapon. Hela was so powerful in the MCU that Thor needed to rely on a full-powered Surtur to defeat her. That meant that he, Loki, Valkyria, and Hulk might not have been able to kill her under normal circumstances. Meanwhile, in the comics, she has a durability rating of 7, which is the highest in the comics. That means that she is incredibly durable and is more durable than even Thor himself. We don't know for certain if Gorr can be killed as long as he is holding the Necrosword. Nevertheless, we do know that Hela is incredibly durable and is capable of surviving almost any kind of attack imaginable. This means that they might be just as durable as each other. Let's move on to the combat skills of these two powerful villains. Gorr never had any combat skills before he became the new owner of the Necrosword, and we can make the assumption that the sword was what allowed him to gain the combat skills he needed to kill gods. His skills were impressive enough to match Thor and Valkyria. There were even moments wherein he actually overpowered them in battle. However, he still struggled against Jane in combat, despite the mighty Thor's apparent lack of experience. Hela was arguably the most skilled Asgardian in history because of the fact that her battle prowess was seemingly unmatched. Not only was she skilled enough to kill the entire army of Asgard, but she was also so skilled that she killed all of the Valkyries in the past. Meanwhile, she was able to showcase her skills in battle by overpowering both Thor and Valkyria in a 2-on-1 fight. In that regard, her combat skills are unmatched by any other Asgardian we have seen in the Thor movie series. Now it's time for my favorite category, top feats shown by each character. Gorr's feats in the MCU aren't as impressive as the ones in the comics, but the fact that he became the God Butcher and was able to destroy entire pantheons of gods throughout the galaxy means that he has impressive feats. In fact, his feats were so impressive that Zeus and the other gods cowered in fear by hiding in Omnipotence City, fearing the possibility that the Necrosword might end up killing them. Hela's feats were impressive in the MCU because she was able to overpower almost everyone in front of her except for Surtur, who was probably at the cosmic level in terms of his powers. Nevertheless, Hela was able to overpower both Thor and Loki, and single-handedly killed the Warriors 3 and the entire Asgardian Einherjar. In the past, she killed all of the Valkyries, who were the mightiest Asgardian warriors. And in the last battle, she was able to handle a double-team effort by Thor and Valkyria before getting killed by Surtur. The fact that Gorr was able to slay gods throughout the entire universe means that he had some pretty impressive feats. And those feats are just about as impressive as the fact that Hela single-handedly could have killed all of the Asgardians had it not been for Surtur. If you have listened to all of this evidence and you still go comment that I'm wrong, try and bring decent reasoning behind it. Because while Gorr was able to prove his might throughout the entire MCU and in the comics, we don't see him winning a fight against Hela. Sure, Gorr was quite powerful in the comics and became so strong that 3 different versions of Thor needed to fight him. But, outside of the fact that he gained the powers of primordial beings in the comics, Thor was strong enough to take him on his own. Meanwhile, Thor was never close enough to Hela's powers both in the MCU and the comics. That's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed the content, feel free to check out some of my other videos or even consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.